As scientists, we are charged with the responsibility of exploring the world around us. Day in, day out, new discoveries are made, hypotheses tested, and groundbreaking results carried out. Millions of people around the world devote their lives to the search for the truth. What is it these people really do? What has driven them to lead a life of search and seeking? And most importantly, what makes a scientist?
To find out, we've come here to the Garvan Institute of Medical Research to interview their Executive Director, Professor John Mattick. Professor Mattick has been a leading researcher in genetics and molecular biology for over 30 years. Let's find out what he has to say.
Probably 3 or 4. One was we had great fun on the muck-up day, I remember. That was the good old days when things were a bit easier than now. I do remember the camaraderie from my school friends, both intellectual and social and sporting. It was just fabulous. And I'm still friendly, I might say, with and still regularly see the people I went through high school with. The other thing I think was just some of the great teachers, that imbued a love of science or a love of English. I remember one of our teachers were studying Shakespeare, and they said, go down to the Oval and sit around in small groups and discuss Romeo and Juliet. Well, the first 2 or 3 times we didn't, but after that we ran out of conversation. We did. It was fantastic. Expectations going into university were I didn't think about it much. I just knew I wanted to be there. I wanted to do science, and I think I was just open to embrace everything that it might offer. I think in retrospect I didn't embrace as much as I could have, and I'd encourage anybody, particularly first year at university, to make the most of all the dimensions of university, the societies and things. It's not just the courses you do, it's all the other things you can get that you don't get in school. And once you graduate and you start to get on a professional career, then you don't have the opportunity to do these things. So, smell the roses. And I went to university. I decided to do science, as I said. I had the other choices, but and then I was terribly disappointed with the University of Sydney because I wanted to do English and philosophy as well as science, and you couldn't do it in those days. You had to do physics, chemistry, biology, and one other, or maths. And so I did those things, and I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew I liked science. I didn't know what I wanted to do. There's lots of people like this, by the way. And they're the kids that read Scientific American and New Scientist and nerdy magazines like that, because they just sort of lap it up. So I just sort of was open-minded, but I bumped into biochemistry, and I thought, this is interesting. And I sort of got more and more sucked into the molecular basis of life, but it was the right time for it, because when I was a student, it were just the early days of understanding gene function and the cloning of genes and getting under the hood. So it was sort of state of the art, and that always is exciting too. Everyone wants to be working at the state of the art and something exciting. So I just sort of got sucked into it. What influenced my decision to go into research was really, I think, fundamentally a love of science. I just loved it. I was fortunate in my old school, St Pat's, to have a science teacher who was just so enthusiastic. I mean, we all remember the teachers we loved because of their enthusiasm and passion, and I had a terrific one, Brother Speary, and I'm still seeing him from time to time. Wonderful man. And so he instilled in me a love of science. I was lucky enough to be selected to go to the University of Sydney Summer Science School, and that sort of expanded. I thought, wow, what a life. And when I thought about the alternatives, whether it was law or medicine or anything else, they're all good and worthwhile careers, but I couldn't imagine anything as exciting as inventing the future. So that's why I did science. Yeah, I didn't get out of the way fast enough. How do you get to be director of something? My strong feeling is that it's not something to aspire to. I think that's the wrong motivation, and maybe the wrong person to do it. I think if you were to be a head of school at a university or a dean of something or a director of an institute, the right reason to do it is because you think there's something to really achieve. And In the case of the Garvan, I came here because I was frustrated that people weren't really embracing the next generation of science and medicine through genomics. And Garvan was just positioned at a point in its history where it was possible to do it here, so I thought, okay, we'll do it. And we've turned this into one of the leading centres in the world in genomic medicine. So that's why I did it. I think the people who do it are silly enough to do it, because it's not a great job, you know. I mean, you've got to, make sure you've got to do budgets, you've got to counsel people who may need counselling, for want of a better word. You've got to, make sure your policy's right, all this sort of stuff that really has to be done, but it isn't terribly exciting. So the sort of people who I think are good at it are those that not only do it for the right motivation, but I think there's a few other qualities. You need to be accomplished as a scientist to have credibility, and I think you need to be reasonably well balanced. Not that I am, and articulate. Our job in a research institute is different to many other careers. It is to create the future. I mean, we stand on the sort of edge of the darkness. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what causes schizophrenia or Parkinson's disease. We don't know why people get type 2 diabetes. We just don't know. So we're trying to find out from clues and cracks, what the answer might be. So it's a really unusual career that requires people with, I think, great creativity as well as intelligence. I think creativity most of all, I think intelligence and drive. The good ones will be naturally drawn towards unusual observations or unusual explanations of existing facts. There's an old saying from, to show my age, from a Leonard Cohen song, says that the cracks are where the light shines. In science, you just don't know, as I said before, what causes schizophrenia or type 2 diabetes. So you're looking for clues, and the good scientists are the ones that have that ability to recognise the things that don't make sense, and then the discipline to prosecute experimental research to try to tease it out. It's also a matter of concern to me that in science now there's a great pressure to be conventional and toe the party line. A good scientist does not toe the party line. I'm not talking about people who might believe in intelligent design and who don't actually have a strong sense of logic or evidence. But so a good scientist uses logic and evidence and creativity. But the job of a scientist is to challenge the conventional wisdom, not to agree with it. The big one for me was the slow burner. It wasn't like, but the slow burner was to realise that when people said most of the human genome was junk, that there was another more interesting alternative. And that is that 50 years ago, when people were first looking at human genetics, they interpreted our genome in mechanical terms, like bicycles, like genes make proteins. DNA makes RNA make proteins. It never occurred to anybody that there might be another form of information which was not components, but rather was required to put the system together, to put 100 trillion cells in the right places. So that was my big thing. Just working out the world was wrong, that was great. Or thinking it might be, And that's where I think good science is. I mean, I'm not talking about myself now, but you just look at something that doesn't make sense to you. Like someone says only, 2% of the human genome is making proteins, and so the other 98% must be junk. It's a great moment to realise that must is the wrong word. Could be is the right word. That might not be is an even better word. It's a difficult question to answer without reflection. You'll probably go away and think of a better title, but the one that comes top of mind is My Journey to Ignorance. Because the older I've got, the more I realise how much I don't know, and how much the world doesn't know, and how thick I've been most of my life. Not just intellectually, but socially, and so forth. So My Journey to Ignorance is what I title it. Who I get to play it? somebody who was a decent character actor with an interesting face, you know. I can't think of one up there. Not Johnny Depp, that's for sure.